In this module, we are going to discuss about date function. Now, the date function returns the number that represents the date in Excel datetime code. Now, to return this number, it will take three parameters. The first parameter is the year. So you have to specify or give the year, and that year should be between 1900 to 99999. Why? Because Excel has a range of date which it can support. So Excel supports the range from 1900, year 1900 to 999. Any number in between these two numbers is considered to be the year, a valid year. However, if you try to give anything less than 1900 or more than 999, it will not take it as a date. It will throw an error. Okay. Month is a number from 1 to 12. Month is a number from 1 to 12. Of course, it starts from January till December. And day is a number from 1 to 31st, depending on the month. So if it is a February, it is 28. And if it's a leap year, it's 29. And if it's a March, it is 31st. If it's April, it is 30th, and so on and so forth. So you have to give that. So this is the parameter it takes. Now, so what date function does, it takes these three parameters and convert those numbers individually into a date. As we all know, if we have in the basics and again in the date time, in the previous videos, I've discussed that a date is actually nothing but internally it is a number. It is the number which represents the number of days which has passed since 1900. For example, I'll say here 1900, first month, first day, fine, is equal to date. And then I'll pass this year as the parameter, then the month as the parameter, and then the day as the parameter. It'll construct the date, fine. But internally, what this? Internally, it is basically a number. If I compare it to general, it's a number. Why 1? Because the date starts from 1st of Jan 1900, right? So if I make this 13, then it is 13th day from 1900. So internally, the date is represents as a number, right? So that's one thing. That is why it says returns the number. Okay, so that's the first part we need to know. Then, if I am constructing this date from year, month, and day, that means the year is in one cell, month is another cell, day is another cell, and I'm asked to create a date from these individual values. Now, this is the way you can do it. However, there is some points which needs to be noted. The points which needs to be noted here is these. If you look at these points which I have jotted down here. Now, in case of year, use 4 digits for the year to prevent unwanted results. So this is a very important point. Whenever you are mentioning year, please remember that you please give 4 digits. If you give anything which is not a 4 digit, now for example, if you give a year between 0 to 1899, which is less than 1900, then how will the system behave? Now for example, if I say here 0, right, what it does? It will add 0 to 1900. That is 1900 is my starting base year, right? So my output would be 13th of Jan 1900. No change? Fine. If I say year to be 1, then it'll say 1901. So it'll add 1 to 1900. If I give the year to be 1000, what it'll do? It'll add 1900 plus 1000, which is 2900. So this way, if any value you put in the year, which is less than 1900, it will just add to 1900 and give you the date. So you should know the behavior of this function. So that is why it is always a good practice that you give you should know the range of year which is supported by Excel, and accordingly give the year. However, if you give this, it will not throw an error. It will interpret these things the way just explained. If the year is between 1900 and 999, it doesn't have any problem. It will show it as it is because it is a valid year. So if you give 2000 or 8000, no problem, because till 9999 it is a valid year. But suppose you give 10,000, and that is where your Excel returns a num value, error value. Right? So Excel will return a num error value if the value is less than 0. So if you give a value of -1, or if you give a value more than 999, it will give you none. Okay. So if you give 0 and till 99999, it will behave in this manner. Okay, so we are giving here 2000 and so that part we understood. Now, month. In case of month, what happens? Of course, when you're talking about month, you refer to the month from 1 to 12. So if you say 1, no problem. You say 12, no problem. But what about if I say 13? So 13 means what? It's 1 year plus 1 month. That means the month will now become 1, and that 12 month will be converted into a single year and added to 2000. So it will show me 13th of January 2001. But it won't give me error. Again, it won't give me error. So if you give a value which is more than 12 for months, it does the mathematical calculations internally and first of all convert that month into year, whichever is the extra bit of month it has, add it to the year, and then whatever is remaining, it'll put that as a month there. Okay, one thing more. If the month is less than 1, so for example, if I give a -1, as -1 as my month, so where it'll go? It'll go to the previous year, right? It'll go to the previous year, right? If I suppose my month is 0, so that will go to the December, right? It'll go to December. If it is 1, it is January, right? If it is 0, it will go to the December of my previous year, right? If I say -1, it will go to the November. So minus will take the date backwards, whereas positive will take the date forward. And if you try to give anything more than 12, then it will interpret it in a way we just explained. Similar thing will happen with the day. If the day is greater than the number of days in the month specified, then the day adds the number of the day to the first day in the month. Right? So if you are giving a day which is, if it's month of March, if you are giving 31st, then it's fine. But if you're giving 32, so it's in the 1st of April, it goes to the next month. And this way, it will calculate internally. You don't have to think about it. Excel does this internally. Similarly, if you give anything which is less than 1 day, that if you give a 0, so it's 29th of Feb. So it goes to the previous month. If you give -1, it goes to the 28th day. So similar to month, the day would also follow the same way. So any value which is negative for day would take it to the previous. Any positive value will take it to the next day. So please remember these rules. These rules are very important as far as the date is concerned. Okay. So it's always a good idea that you do the validations yourself. But again, if you add months like the way more than 12, then the Excel has the logic, inbuilt logic to adjust the date accordingly and produce a new date. However, only for the year which is less than 0 or 10,000, it throws error. So in some specific cases where it could not actually do it, then it throws an error. Okay. So these things, please keep in mind before you work with the date functions.